What's up, guys? It's your girl Joycelyn back with another video. So I'm still home like a lot of you guys are, obviously because of what's going on in the whole world, and that is the coronavirus situation, which is insane, and it's just super crazy. So I'm hoping that everybody's staying safe and everybody's staying indoors. So today I'm gonna be doing a different type of video, and it's basically taking you guys back into where it all started for me, as far as the person that I am today and why I am that person. And yeah, but that is talking about when I found God. But I know a lot of you guys right now are probably like, all right, this is gonna be boring. I assure you it's not. It's not your average story. um I didn't know about God. I wasn't raised in church. I wasn't raised to pray to God, to speak to God. I didn't know, like I knew about God, like I heard like God, period, point blank, but I didn't know about God, like who he truly is, and just the miracles that he does is in the way that he moves, and just how he loves. I didn't know all that in depth part of it. I was raised in a very toxic environment, super toxic environment, where witchcraft was the primary practice from my family. And it was a hectic environment, 24/7, always fighting. I was raised to just basically always have my walls up, because I didn't know when I was gonna fight, when I was gonna argue in the household. I didn't know if something was gonna be taken out of my room. I didn't know if I was gonna go downstairs and just get like hit. Like I had no control growing up. It was very toxic. I endured a lot of trauma from it, and trauma that I'm still coping with as an adult and as a parent, because I'm trying to break those chains, those generational curses. I'm trying to, do the best that I can, under the circumstances, of how I was raised. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy. And I give props to anybody that went through like a similar background where, there's trauma, abuse involved, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, or even sexual abuse. I definitely give props to anybody living life, period, point blank, that has endured any of those forms of abuse as a child, because it's very hard. It's very hard to live like that. You honestly don't know what your day is going to look like when you are walking this world with trauma. You don't know if something's going to like spark up in your brain and make you relive those moments. You don't know if one day you're going to feel sad. You don't know if the next hour you're feeling hopeful. And you don't know if then by the end of the day you're feeling depressed, because you have all these thoughts and you're trying to like basically swim out of this ocean you're drowning in. So when I was about 14 years old, my mom kicked me out of her house. And mind you, I always lived with my mom up until that point. I always lived with her. And so she kicked me out because of a traumatic situation. And so I was forced to live with my father and my brother in a 1-bedroom basement. But this wasn't no ordinary basement. This was a basement that was so filthy and unsafe, unhealthy. There were so many cats with fleas. My brother had a pet squirrel. There were obviously spiders there were roaches, there were centipedes, there were so many mice. This was just such a horrible place for a teenage girl to live in, for obvious reasons. Completely unsanitary, and I had no say as far as getting rid of the animals and all this stuff. God forbid if I would have gotten rid of an animal or tried to rearrange something or change something, it would have been a physical altercation. It was a very bad time for me, and a DCF case had opened because of what had occurred in my mother's house. And I felt so alone during that time. I felt so let down and depressed. The DCF worker came to the basement, and she wouldn't even sit down. She didn't even want to sit down because she saw how disgusting the place was. But she thought that it was good enough for me to stay at. I completely felt let down by a lot of people. I felt alone. I felt unloved for obvious reasons. And the system had completely failed me. I had no hope. I didn't understand how such a abusive, toxic parent could just completely blindfold DCF. And how I was like just left in an environment that I didn't ask to be in and I didn't deserve to be in. It was crazy. It was such a hard time for me. The weeks went by, the months went by, and I would text my mom all the time crying, begging her to take me back. And I would tell her, like, please, like, just, rearrange what you need to rearrange in the household, please. And I will work and I will give you my whole paycheck. Just please take me back. And it's crazy. I know a lot of you would probably be like, well, why, if you went through such a hard situation there. But it was what I knew. It was what I was like comfortable with at that point. Like up until that point where she kicked me out, I was trained already. I was trained to have my walls up and be on guard and protect myself and fight and argue. I was trained for that. I was used to that environment, although it was unhealthy and toxic. And also her house was clean, and that's just the lifestyle that I was used to. I didn't know what it was to be in an uncomfortable location with two people that I wasn't completely comfortable with, and in such a disgusting environment. It was completely different, and I begged and I begged, and she wouldn't take me back. She wouldn't handle what she needed to handle, and she didn't want me. So obviously I became super hurt, shut down, closed, cold. I didn't know what to think. I was alone. I had no family, nobody to be like, all right, come, like, I'm gonna help you. Nobody. So one day, it was either my friend at the time's birthday or her boyfriend at the time's birthday. I'm not too sure, but we were all in the same school. And so after school, we decided to go to the boyfriend's house at the time and obviously, drink. And I remember we were on the porch and we were drinking. And I remember having my headphones on and just having a song on replay. I just kept replaying the same song and I kept drinking and drinking. Eventually, I guess I got to the point, because I don't even remember this part, got to the point where I finished my bottle and I started stealing everybody else's drink, taking it from them and just drinking. until the point where I fell face first onto the porch floor. Unresponsive, just completely blank. So I actually remember for a glimpse my face being on the floor. I don't remember anything else after that besides for the part inside the house. So at this point, they had taken me inside the bathroom and they were trying to take off my clothes and throw me into the bathtub. And I remember feeling like I was gonna die. At that point, it was such a hopeless moment for me. I couldn't communicate. I couldn't talk. I couldn't move. I couldn't open my mouth. But I knew what was happening. Like, I knew that they were trying to undress me. I kept coming in and out of it, but I knew that's what they were trying to do. And I just remember, like, I'm gonna die because I am far worse than throwing me in the bathtub. I'm gonna die. Like, I need help. And I remember just being on that bathroom floor while they were undressing me, and I feel like I remember it in slow motion. It's so insane. And where I knew I could let go was when I saw the firefighters walking through the door. The first glimpse that I saw of the hat, I remember I let go. I let go. I knew at that point that it was okay to let go and stop fighting my hardest to stay up and alive because there was help. After that, I don't remember anything until I woke up in the hospital the next day. I think what kills me the most sometimes about the story, is that apparently when I arrived to the hospital, my parents were already there. And they had let my mom know that I was gone. They let her know I was gone while they were fighting for my life inside, but they let her know. And I think what kills me the most is that even after all that, she still didn't want me back. It wasn't enough for her to say, all right, something's wrong here. Something's wrong. That wasn't enough. So, long story short, I get discharged a couple days after, back to the basement. And then I remember the next day I had to go to school. My mom made my dad make me go to school. I was only in school for like 30 minutes because I clearly was still not recuperated. I was awful. I was so awful. So they sent me back home. So I found myself in the basement alone. Because at this point, I think my father was working and my brother, I don't know where he was. So I was in the basement alone. And I remember just laying on that bed, feeling so horrifically sick, but contemplating to myself ways of killing myself when I felt better. Like, I kept thinking, like, I should just end it. But if I end it, how do I end it? That was my plan. When I was strong enough to get off that bed, I was going to kill myself. And all of a sudden, I'll never forget it. A bright light, like a big bright light, just came down from the ceiling. It just came down from the ceiling. And we're talking about, I'm in a basement. I'm in a dark basement. It was dark. The only thing that was coming through was some sunlight from the small little window over there in the corner. And all of a sudden, this big, bright light just whoosh, it just comes down like all of a sudden, like in like this straight line. And it was crazy. It's honestly an experience that I'll never forget, guys. He didn't need to say, "It's me, I'm here, I'm God." He didn't need to say any of that. I didn't know who he was before that, but he still didn't need an introduction. That's just how big and amazing he is. And at that moment, I just broke down because I knew exactly who he was. I just broke down. And I just raised my hand up to the sky. And I just started crying. And I gave my heart to God. It was just him and I. Just me and him. It was just us. Nobody said, "God loves you. Accept him." Nobody ever had that conversation with me. It was just God. A couple days later, I knew that a family member through marriage was in church. They were Christian, and I reached out to them, and I went to their church, and that became my home church. The first day that I went, I gave my heart to God again at church that time. And a lot of people opened their arms to me. I had a lot of spiritual moms to make up for the void that I had for years. I had a lot of spiritual moms, and the pastor became like the father I never had, the father figure that I truly needed. I know that a lot of you guys probably watching this video don't believe in God. And trust me, I didn't really believe in him either. It wasn't like I was like a non-believer, like, oh, God doesn't exist. But it was just like, oh yeah, I know God exists, just from hearing it from other people. But not really truly believing who he was, and really believing it from the bottom of my heart that God was real. And that God is love. I grew up in such a toxic home. And like I mentioned before, all that was practiced was witchcraft. Yeah, on Sundays, I remember as a child, my mom used to take me to a Catholic church, but it was just in and out. It wasn't practiced. The word that was read wasn't spoken about. It wasn't believed in. When we would get through those doors, it was candles, an altar, worshiping all these figures, all these things that are powerless. I didn't know who God was either until that day. And he was so merciful and loving and caring enough that even though I didn't know him, my mom didn't talk to me about him, my family didn't talk to me about him, nobody really like put me there, but he came at my worst. At my worst. It was truly my worst. Almost have died. Your mom not wanting you. The other one being not really a parent. Living with all this trauma. Just wanting someone to hold you. Just, just wanting someone to love you. At 14 years old, me laying there, just ready to give up on life. Just finding ways and thinking of ways to kill myself. Trust me, at that time, I didn't think there was a way out. I would have never thought that God was the way out. And that's what made me who I am. And no, I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. I get angry. Sometimes I swear. I get pissed off, and quite frankly, sometimes I want to pop off. That's the truth. Sometimes that old, wild, hurt Joycelyn wants to come out. But you know what? I don't allow it to happen. I don't allow for myself to take it to the next level. But those feelings are there because we're human. Because this is real. This is real life. But one thing's for sure. I have hope now. And I have faith. Because there is someone who's there for me all the time. No matter what. No matter how many people leave me and abandon me. Because trust me, even after that, people kept walking out. People would come in and walk right out like a revolving door. But there's one person who has always remained. And that's God. No matter how unfaithful I have been to him. That's one thing that doesn't change. I love him. I love God. And it took me a lot of years to genuinely mean it when I say it. But I could really say, I love God with all my heart. Because he's the only one that's shown me true love. Even when I didn't love myself. I didn't love myself for a long time. I could say that I recently started knowing how to love myself. But he's always loved me. When people left and when people were there. When I loved myself and when I didn't love myself. I am who I am because of that.